Thank you for choosing to listen to the sample audiobook from Artesia North. To listen to the full book, visit artesianorth.com, and with no further interruption. Chapter 1. In January 1933, in mid-March, Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist German Workers' Party established a concentration camp for political prisoners in the Bavarian town of Dachau. Located just outside of Munich, the ethnic repression of the Jewish population started in earnest. By April, some 60,000 were imprisoned, and the brilliant effort of one Hermann Hollerith, an employee of the United States government in the U.S. Census Bureau, was inadvertently the reason they were in peril. Hollerith devised a readable card system that, with standard perforations, designed to designate individual traits like gender, nationality, and occupation, all absolutely efficient ways to identify and control your perceived enemies. Hitler used this technology with efficiency, eventually rounding up everyone on his despicable list of fellow and unworthy German citizens, incarcerating and capturing all in a cold-blooded manner, while cutting-edge technology blindly led the way. The German leader devised a systematic plan to desensitize the populace by starting with criminals being incarcerated in 1937. Raids were organized across Germany, casting nets for any and all persons previously convicted of breaking the law. On the 9th of March, 1937, Heinrich Himmler captured over 2,000 people in one night, sending them to the new camps. Prior to the roundup of criminals, in 1935, socials such as gypsies, homosexuals, prostitutes, and the homeless were joined by Jehovah's Witnesses who refused to fight or to meet their military obligations, as a result, were incarcerated and murdered. In the time period leading up to present time, Jews were designated for forced emigration, and those that remained suffered arrest for the crime of being Jewish. As Germany occupied countries such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the Netherlands, a fresh supply of prisoners were added to the prison population in large numbers. Keeping track of all this incarcerated inventory was a nightmare for the German administrators, who had a great desire to account and record everything, no matter how minor, dastardly, or cruel. The system of punch card recording kept a record of individual traits such as gender, nationality, and occupation. The millions of punch cards created for the national census were then sorted on the basis of specific information that they contained, allowing a true portrait of the nation and all of its citizens, as well as a qualified baseline on who to go after next. For whatever reason, this critical piece of technology was failing, and in the orderly German mindset, that would not be allowed to continue. Willy Vrobel, the former superstar salesman for the National Cash Register Company and current chief executive officer for Die Hamag, a German company that shared a mutual admiration with Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime, answered the call for help and assistance. When his friend had a problem, Vrobel had an answer and sent his best man to do the adjustments and repairs. Gustav Loeb descended from the large, bulletproof vehicle and followed his briefcase and trunk as it was spirited toward the rough-hewn building known as the administrative office at the Dachau concentration camp. The cold was unbearable to him despite his long coat, gloves, heavy scarf, and a beaver-skinned hat. If he was freezing in the cutting wind, he could only imagine the poor people lined up in a loose formation, none properly dressed or prepared for the frozen exposure. Attempting to not lock eyes on any of the unfortunates before him, he was helpless to avoid the haunting look of the woman standing in the protective gap between the menacing female guard and herself and son. Locking eyes, the woman failed to see what was Loeb's full and painful view as the soldier drove the stock of her rifle into the skull of the boy. Intending to strike the mother first, and then the child, the uniformed torturer missed and raised the wooden stock high to complete the job and only stopped at the sound of the Swiss camp visitor. "Stop. Do not hurt her." Gustav looked around and was surprised himself that the voice giving commands was his. The brown-coated antagonist froze with weapon in mid-air, looking in the direction of her commanding officer, who accompanied the young computer repairman into the camp office. The commandant, Oscar Mayer, was slightly embarrassed that his guest was exposed to the reality of the camp environment so soon. Waving the SS guard off of the woman, he silently ordered him to proceed with his normal duties. As the mother wept over her wounded son, the man from Switzerland collected himself and was guided to his original destination, quietly making a vow to keep his eyes downward for the rest of the time on the job and to never forget the evil look on the face of the heartless female guard. As he entered the main office area, he felt the warmth of the iron stove that sat in the center of the room, slowly being fed small logs by a person who was obviously a prisoner of a different class than the one standing and freezing outside. In a daze, he recognized the voice of his host, Commandant Meyer. "You must know that you have no authority over me or my staff, Herr Loeb." Meyer scolded. Of course the slight young man knew that he had no authority. The mixture of authority and understanding in the voice of the German conveyed a message of strict military intolerance. "You are correct, sir. I reacted badly and out of my element. I apologize." Feeling that his point was well taken and that there would be an unlikely reoccurrence, the senior officer spoke in a measured tone. "Good. We will consider it a one-time incident. No need to report or repeat. I think you will agree?" The young man nodded in agreement and indicated that he understood the veiled threat that the man who could cause havoc to his employer and direct supervisor, something that would certainly inhibit his budding career in business, especially a business that was as far-flung and international as his. "Can you have someone show me to my quarters, please?" The commandant motioned for another prisoner to secure the luggage for the young man. "Take Herr Loeb's belongings to the visitor guest room and see that he is comfortable." Turning to his guest, the German officer allowed his voice to be less stern. "After you are settled, we will gather for supper this evening and discuss your project and repair schedule. We are truly less efficient without your machines working properly." With that, Gustav followed the orderly to his quarters, glad to have some privacy to collect his thoughts. Thank you for listening to the sample audiobook from Artesia North. To listen to the full book, visit artesianorth.com.